talent. By the way, back to the density part, that's just one example of when you play a role in the community, the way that you can exert an amount of leadership is when you put your day job's agenda to the side and you sign up for the agenda of the community. The best way is to say, how does this serve entrepreneurs, not myself, as the banker, the real estate person, whatever role that you play during your day job. If you can effectively put that to the side and sign up for the overall mission of growing this community and helping entrepreneurs, that's the one filter that will help you figure out how you make a decision and how you help. Is that clear? Good. All right, bottom line in talent, we need a lot more founders. We need to be growing this. It seems to be kind of relatively flat with maybe a small uptick over the last 3 years. This is a classic pipeline problem. The good news today is founders come in all shapes and sizes and gender, race, education level, age. These are just a few things. Obviously, most entrepreneurs today are kind of young, white males, average age 30, right? Like, okay, what are we going to do about that? That's just the nature of the beast. However, we can be intentional about making sure in this all-inclusive point of view or attitude of opening up other doors and windows for people who don't fit that. I don't see too many very proactive or intentional activities to do that. It's one thing we have ended up doing really well, by the way, in Durham. Boulder has the same problem. In my community, we have no racial majority. It's 40% black, 40% white, 20% Hispanic, and everything else. And I can tell you, you walk down the streets of Durham, and nobody gives a hoot, whether you're gay, straight, believe in God, don't believe in God, 50 or 20. If you have an entrepreneurial idea, someone's going to listen. There's a place for you, there's a meetup for you, and all of it is in our kind of startup space. That's another place where leadership can jump in, new leadership. I believe every company is a tech company. I'm stealing that line from Mark Andreessen. Thank you. Small little brain fart. Don't worry about that. That doesn't mean that this place has to be just about technology, but obviously technology is a key component in tomorrow's business. The good news is we have 2 colleges in Okanagan College and UBCO, but their CS/engineering programs are pretty early stage. Combined, there's maybe 35 to 50 CS graduates a year. That's good news as it's starting to kind of rise, but we need to scale that significantly. And I know the people I talk to there are trying, but we got to figure out a way to supercharge that. Give you some perspective, in Boulder, Denver, as of 2015, that area produces about 370 computer science graduates a year. In my town of Raleigh-Durham, it's 650. In Corvallis, Oregon, small university town, 270. They have 55,000 people in Corvallis. So that's kind of the scale and the issue we're talking about.
Was that just Boulder or Boulder and Denver?
Yeah, CU is only so much. And by the way, I just use that, bless you, I don't use that just like every tech talent has to be a CS degree. I'm also a big fan of code academies and code schools, and I know something was started here a little while back and maybe didn't materialize, but we got to keep trying to figure out ways to train up people that are interested so that we can fuel, right, the companies in terms of talent. Remember, this is all about talent. The other area that there's a kind of void of is kind of what I call roughly digital marketing. Early stage companies all struggle for customers. How do you find, onboard, and retain customers is the whole cat's meow. There's a couple people here in this first row that know this near and dear to their heart. But there's a talent here, and you can't bank on recruiting talent from Vancouver or Toronto every time. We're gonna have to build that in here. The good news is there's 150 to 300,000, depending on how we want to define the geography of this region. How can we be super smart about building more talent? I'm gonna give you some ideas. I think this is a top priority that goes across all of the actors in the ecosystem. There's a role for everyone to play, from government, obviously, to academic, to specific startups. So it's time, I think, for a major investment. Doesn't actually mean money, it could mean time. But if I was living in this community and I saw what I saw, I'd be figuring out how to find 10 or 15 people and figure out how we're gonna supercharge this. This could be your competitive advantage. I've heard about the sunshine tax and all the people who are motivated, who find their way here, love to be here. Well, how do we put that on steroids? How do we make people more aware of what this place has to offer, right? Storytelling is one way you can do that. But I believe there's some things that can be much more intentional. By the way, easier here than if I was sitting in Philadelphia or Toronto, right? That's where scale or size actually can work in your favor. I'd like to start one aspect around founder development. And one of the things that makes me nervous is that when I look at this fantastic organization like AO and the things they do, as more and more companies over the last 5 years have started to scale and mature, they've started to open up programming like RevUp to address some of those needs. But it's still a fairly fixed bucket, which means something has to fall off. And if you view this as a funnel, what I feel like is they're fattening some of the middle of the funnel to address some of those needs, but what they've done is kept the top of the funnel the same. And that may work in the short term, but we all know how pipelines work. And what I'm afraid of is we're going to be sitting here 3 years from now and we're not going to have that many companies. And not only is that number maybe not doubling, but maybe even starts to shrink at the top. Every entrepreneur, back to the room metaphor, shouldn't have to go through AO to figure out how to be an entrepreneur. There's lots of ways to do that. Startup weekends are one example. We run one a year. I heard from many of you that we don't need more than one. Well, I don't think you need more than one if it's only for young white males. But what about ones that aren't technically oriented? Or about vineyards, or farming, or ag tech, or some other kind of manufacturing? There's lots of ways to theme these things. All of these, you know, I am sure, I'd love to have the numbers, I'm sure out of every startup weekend, the 1,000 taking place around the world, that out of every one, at least 2 or 3 entrepreneurs decide that's their trigger point to go, I'm going to do it. Los Angeles ran 16 startup weekends last year. Obviously, this isn't LA. It's much better. It's not on fire. You're on fire in a different way. But you get the idea, right? What are the things that we're going to do? By the way, think out of the box. A couple weeks ago, I spent time in, of all places, Wichita, Omaha. Wichita, Kansas, sorry. Hello, is this Pittsburgh? Wichita, Kansas, and there's an organization there that runs throughout the US, 35 cities, I think, that teach high school teachers how to teach entrepreneurship. Why not start in the high schools, right? Why not? Think outside the box. How are you going to supersize the number of founders around here? There's a lot of smart people in this room. We can go figure that out. Computer science graduates. So there's 35 to 50. Do we just hope that they find one of these companies? Every so often, if we're lucky, maybe one of the CS teachers grabs one of the technical founders here and says, come in and guest speak once a semester. That seems like limping in, doesn't it? How do we supercharge this? How do we make sure that every single one of those computer science graduates knows about 25 or 50 of the companies here from the first day they arrive? with a soda and pizza because they can't have beer yet, I don't know, whatever it is, right? But you know what I mean? And that throughout their journey, there's co-ops and internships and paid and, you know, God, if you're going to throw money at something, why don't we throw money at making them, or not making them, encouraging them to stay and work in one of the companies. Imagine the word of mouth if every single one of those students were almost guaranteed a job when they finished. And a job they liked because they spent a semester in some kind of co-op, right? Think out of the box. How are you going to grab those 35 or 50? And I got to tell you, you do a great job of that, that number will be 100 before we know it, right? Because people will be coming from throughout the whole region saying, this is a place for me. What are you going to do to build a tighter interaction? Not do all the same shit that everyone else does, right? How are you going to be really unique about that and build these interactions with these CS students? It's an engine. We're just priming the engine and trying to be different from everyone else. Like, you guys can do that. Like, it's a lot easier to do it for a city of this size than a city like Philadelphia. Ugh, my hometown. Mentorship. I talked a little bit about the mentorship, that we need to kind of broaden our definition. It doesn't all have to be organized mentorship. It can be ad hoc. I have calendars set up in my calendars for open office hours every week. It's now about an hour to hour and a half. They're 20 minutes each. Anybody can ask for them. Some people here have. And we'll talk about anything you want. You want to talk about life, you want to talk about hockey, you want to talk about your company, you want to talk about a specific problem. I don't filter those. They're on my website. If you email me in, there's an auto response. You sign up. You look at the calendar, I don't have to get involved in it. I never filter those. I have probably sat one-on-one with 3,000 to 4,000 people in the last 5 or 6 years. That's my mentorship. And we'll talk about only one time did someone abuse that and tried to sell me insurance. Took about 5 minutes and I turned around and I said, all right, how are you going to help me? But I'm not going to filter that. I don't want to miss anything. I'm here to serve. That's my give back. Mentorship doesn't have to be super organized, right? I've told some of the, shared this with some of the people here, who are busy running big companies and trying to find ways to stay connected while they're running their company. And I said, decide what you want to do. I decided I could give an hour a week just for that. I put it out publicly. People can find it. It's on my website, on my blog. They pick their 20 minutes. Like, I don't even have, and an hour a week, that seems like an easy give, right? But I touch 3 to 4 people a week in doing that. Mentorship doesn't have to be kind of organized and I have to go and I have to knock on AO's door, right? Each one of us can help somebody in something. So I'd like to broaden that definition. I'd like you guys to consider kind of building out this Okanagan network by introducing other people. The thing about this area, it is smaller than most large, it isn't Seattle or LA or New York or even Raleigh-Durham with 2+ million people. Everything that I need is not going to be here. So let's recognize that, step back and say, all right, if I'm having a hardware scaling problem and there's no one here that's ever been through that, then how do I find and get connected to somebody somewhere else? Toronto, Calgary, LA, Chicago. Each one of you probably knows, if I ask that question, there's probably at least 3 of you who could give me somebody that you should talk to, or that they'll find someone to talk to and bend their ear for half an hour, buy them a coffee, whatever it is, right? It doesn't have to be bound by the geographic limits of this area. So I think we need to start building that out. If we do that really effectively and do it better and do it with the right attitudes and stuff, no worries. We've spent a lot of time at Techstars thinking about mentorship. So one of the things I'm going to offer is putting together some video kind of coaching and talk about mentorship. And, I think this is the second thing that I've mentioned today, that how we want to help going forward. How are we doing on time, by the way? We're about an hour in? I The quarter after doesn't mean anything to me because I have no idea what time it is. But how are we doing, like?
You got 45 minutes left.
All right, let's keep it to 15, Heivly says, so we leave time to chat.